Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Chicken Box. I'm your host, Jay. I'm here with my co-host this week, Alexis Taylor, our managing editor.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, Jay.
Absolutely. So once again, welcome back to the Chicken Box. And this is a auspicious month for us. This is 132 years. We just had our 132 birthday for the Afro-American newspaper, which is pretty astounding for the oldest Black family-owned newspaper in the country, which is just remarkable. And it's interesting who we have today because we are talking directly about historical reporting that was done very uniquely by the Afro. So, of course, we have a person who is directly tied to the work that the Afro puts out. So, Alexis, you are a needed guest, absolutely. But so we have three people from the Apple TV show Lady in the Lake, which heavily relied on a lot of the chronicle reporting from the Afro back in 1969, following the death of Shirley Parker. So I'm going to bring in Nambi E. Kelly, who is the executive story editor for the show, Jennifer Mogbach, who is an actress, and Elwood Ingram, who is also an actor on the show. So welcome, everyone. It's a packed house.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
All right. So there is plenty to talk about. This show on Apple TV is getting a lot of response, I think, and I think it's very positive and interesting, considering that a lot of people didn't know these stories. I thank everybody for being involved in this and bringing these stories to light. So I'll start, and then I guess Alexis and I will kind of ping pong with our questions. First off, how was the reception that you've guys seen to the show? Nambi, I'll start with you, and we'll go around. But what's the reception that you've received, considering these stories, like I said, were largely not widely known? I mean, this is from 1969, but even nationally, I don't think they were as highly reported. So, what have you seen?
Oh, the response has been incredible. People have been very receptive to the show and very excited about learning about this event that happened to Shirley Parker and this fictitious story that it comes from the book written by Laura Lippman. So the response has been great. People have really kind of applauded the history and also Alma Harrell's direction, which is impeccable.
Elwood, what has been the response that you've seen?
Oh, the response has been crazy because being a Baltimore native, a lot of the people that I've encountered, they didn't know that this was a true story. They thought that this was all fictitious. They thought everything was just all made up. And I said, no, this actually happened. So it's been a wide range of responses. A lot of people were able to tune in because there were certain parts of the story they were definitely able to relate to, as far as things that was personally going on in their lives or some things that they may have seen ongoing in the Baltimore community.
Okay. And Jennifer, I'll finish up with you.
Just echoing and piggybacking everyone else. It's been astounding to watch people. I always knew that Alma's direction was going to be outstanding, but seeing it fully realized has been the joy of my artistic experience right now. Just knowing that I'm part of a story that does right by Black bodies, has a nuanced example of what womanhood is in this time period feels really outstanding. And everyone in my neck of the woods seems to see it that way too. So that's pretty exciting.
Excellent. Alexis, do you have any questions?
Sure. I mean, just to start off with the Afro's coverage of this. For those who don't know, Shirley Lee Widgeon Parker was a 35-year-old Baltimore resident. She disappeared on April 23rd, 1969. The Afro covered her extensively while she was missing. We did everything from interview her mother and her family members to talk to mediums who were holding seances to find out what happened to Miss Parker. And so we covered it extensively back then. And as was mentioned, I think that it's important to have these Black stories on record, so that even if the storyline is made for TV and some things get lost in the sauce as far as the factuality of it, it's important to have that record. So I would say my first question is, how did you all prepare for your roles when it comes to the historical aspect of it? Did you use any archival material? How did you get into the sense of your character, especially with it being a period piece from the 60s?
Well, I'll jump in. I'm not an actor on the show. I'm a writer on the show. But basically, our entire process was like loaded with just inundating everything that we could possibly read about Miss Parker, clips from the Afro, everything about the time period. Like Alma was very, very specifically wanting this to feel as authentic an experience as possible in terms of the hairstyles, the costumes, the bus, what the exterior is. Like she was just, beautifully relentless in terms of making sure that the veracity of the project was present as a launching pad for the entertainment value. And so so she really worked hard on that, and we worked hard on that as a room. So we got lots of books, and books shipped to, because this was COVID that we built this, so there were lots of books shipped to the house showing up. This is about Baltimore, this about Baltimore, this about the Chitlin Circuit, this about, like, Alma was, it was amazing to like just sort of dig in artistically in terms of the historical part of it. It was really a ball.
All right. Elwood, Jennifer?
I'm a huge period drama nerd. I that's like my genre of choice. The further the history, the better for me in watching things.
I love it.
So this was like candy for me. And I decided that I wanted to submerge myself in the music. So a lot of my research was about jazz singers of the time, just the Chitlin Circuit, just mainstream jazz. I wanted to really figure out what it was like to be a musician in that time in every aspect, like everyday life. And then it led me to a lot of research about drug use and why drug use was so prominent in that time for musicians. And along the way, I'm sure my partner is currently annoyed, but I listen to jazz music nonstop. So I just dove in the thing that excited me the most, which is the music.
Excellent.
I agree. I'm not going to go too far into it, but I did want to get a sense of the time. And so I went on to Apple Music and just looked up the hits from 1969 just to see like what was she listening to when she disappeared? What were the top 10 hits? What was blasting from the cars of the time period? So yeah, the connection to the music, I definitely feel that.
Yeah. And I also want to add that creating is one thing, but arriving and the creatives, like the wig design, makeup design, costume design, really elevates your imagination. You go from thinking you're prepared to fully being submerged. So props to our design team, extraordinary group of artists.
Yes. And I'll say, even though I didn't have any speaking lines, so I went into it as background. And what was really different for me, I had no clue, I had no idea that I was going to be featured pretty much on every episode. You can see my face somehow, some way on there. But the way that I carried it was, once I figured out that it was a period piece, I went home and I started doing research, and everybody, Elwood, why are you doing it? You're just in the background. You're just a background act. I said, ha ha ha. That's what you think. I said, I'm gonna be a lead, but they said, Elwood, what is a lead background? I said, I promise you, I'm gonna be featured. So every day I already had manifested a lot of these things. I went home, did my research, and it came upon, once we did the fitting. Oh my Lanta. When we did the fitting, I said, oh, this is some nice clothes, because my expertise is in well. So I was like, wow, this is the stuff my dad used to. So I went home, started looking at old pictures, started looking at old movies, and I made sure that I had that attitude. No matter where I was on set, I made sure that I was make sure I was actually tuned in, the way that they walk, the movements, the stance, the everything. And no matter what, I don't care where that camera was at, Elwood, Mr. Clare, I was in character and I stayed in character. I was using words, jive turkey, and I was just fully in character. And every time, and it was a couple of times when Jennifer was on stage and we have a picture. Oh, thank you for a picture. And I was talking to her, and I was just like, wow. And I was like, you're right. She was just like, oh, Elwood, I think. And I was like, wow. I was like, is she really high? Like, what's going on? I was like, she's still in character. And she said, I said, Elwood, get back in character. So I was like, all right. So it was, she made it really, really fun. All the main actors, they were just so professional and so great. They were always willing to give pointers. So I just always just made sure just to stay in character no matter what position I knew that I was in. My walks had to be on point. I had to make sure my wig wasn't sweating. Everything. I just had to make sure I was going to be on point at all times because I never knew what spots. Being a background actor, you never know where the camera's going to be because you could be, oh, the camera's right here, but then you show it and then you're just a blur. But
Right.
thank God he did some things for a brother. So.
I love it. I love it. And so that leads to my next question. You're talking about the methods that you use to bring the character alive on the screen. And absolutely, you want to stay in character even after they hit that cut. So I'm just interested in what training you all have had to get you to this point. I think that it is amazing that they've used Black creatives, not only in the forefront on screen, but behind the scenes as well. So what are some of the things that you all did to get into this position and get ready for the role that you had in this production?
Oh, I'll start. I always wanted to be a writer. So I went to I went to DePaul University, the theater school. So that's where my undergraduate degree is in. My undergraduate degree is actually in playwriting. So there's that. And I have a master's degree in interdisciplinary arts because I also make a living as an actor. So I do both. And so basically, I've been produced all over the country, all over the world, actually. And I've been really blessed to recently make my foray into television. My agent called. He said, "Hey, read this book. They want to interview you." And so I read the book. I took the interview. Me and Alma really connected on the direction of the show, which is the show is not the book, but it's very close to it, and then some of the history is as well. So I agreed completely with her vision and how she was building out Cleo, played by Moses Ingram, brilliantly played by Moses Ingram. And so we were here with it, and so we just never looked back. And so that was how I came to it.
All right, thank you for that. Jennifer, would you like to say what are some of the trainings that you've had? What's some of the educational background that led you to this point?
I've been doing this. Sometimes I feel like I was born with jazz hands because it's been my whole life. I went to Performing Arts High School, and I also did my undergrad at SUNY Purchase, got a BFA, and I am a recent graduate of the NYU Graduate Acting Program.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. I love my program and really, really proud to be an alumni from there. And my training and I've also worked at the Stratford Festival, one of the largest classical theater company in North America. So she's a Shakespeare girly as well. And my training is in everything. I think what I pride myself on is NYU's a place that teaches you how to get messy, how to kind of just throw it on the wall. And that's how I treat my process. I start with a journal, and the journal is, I call it my universe. So anything and everything goes in the journal, what I listen to, what I smell. I go perfume shopping, textile shopping. Like I try to think about every direction that I could possibly be curious in. I lead from a place of curiosity. And for this particular role, I think the thing that took up the most amount of research was the drug use. I watched a lot of material about the sense memory aspect of drug use because I've never done it and I didn't want it to be. And Alma was very, very adamant about she's not a junkie. She gets the best of the best and she's stuck in the cycle, but she's not. She wanted to give the character respect. And it also made me want to dive into the nuances and the specificity of drug use. Like what happens when you first get high versus the end? What happens when you're at the, you know, the physical aspect is gone, but the mental high is still present. So I did a lot of research on that and I took it from there. And then I believe that you do all the work and then you show up and you throw it away and you trust that it's there.
All right, Elwood, can you give us a little bit of your background? Who are some of the people and what are some of the things that have led you to where you are today on screen?
Well, I've been telling people for years, this face belongs on the tissue. It belongs there. It belongs there. It's all exuberated. I take care of my skin, everything. But I've had several training with 21st Century Fox as well as Lee Daniels. I took a few classes with Lisa Ray as well as a Baltimore class, which is called the Actors Academy, hosted by Awesome Amin. As well as I just always just continue my education, even though I love this, I live and breathe this. But really, what helped me to really tune in is I'm a watcher. So every day I'm always creating a different type of scenario, and I play movies in my head, and I just try to do just different things. And I'm a comedic actor that just comes off by nature. But really being backstage, a lot of people when they say break and everyone breaks, oh no, I'm breaking and I'm ear hustling and I'm trying to figure out what the director wants, what the director needs, where they're saying, oh no, we got to try this angle. Oh no, we want to bring your tone down a little bit more. So I'm picturing it. I'm like, oh, okay, well, just in case that actor gets sick and she needs somebody to jump in, I'm gonna be right there. And I think that that's literally how I got all of my parts because I played a crony. I was a dancer. I was the chef. I was one of the pool guys. I was one of the people on the inside of the bar. I just played like no matter what. So whenever Alma was just like, I can't, and I would just slide in like, and she was like, oh, Elwood can't. I sure can because I already knew what she wanted. I already knew what she expected. And then watching the main actors and actresses, I just saw how they carried themselves. So I knew at some point in time that my number would be called. And Lord behold, my number was called several times, and I had about 6 roles. So I'm just greatly and appreciative of all those things. So I want to tell all the people out there, never think just because you are background and you don't have a speaking role, that doesn't mean that your career cannot go in the upward direction. You have to make your own wave. You have to be creative, even without words. Because sometimes you may get a script and you may just have one word and it's just no. But you got to figure out 12,000 different ways to be able to say no, to dare to be different, and always think outside of the box. You never want to be a stuck inside of the box actor or actress. You always want to think outside of the box. And what I found was really successful for me was a lot of times they be like, oh, that's the first thing. And I'm like, oh, that's the first thing you thought of? Oh, I'm going deeper. So I always just make sure I go totally left. When I know people are, oh, I'm going left. So I'm an ear hustler and I'm a people watcher just to make sure that I don't never have to get ready because I'm going to always be ready.
I love it. I love it. I can definitely tell that you all put a lot of hard work in all of your training. It definitely translates in this series, Lady in the Lake. If you're just joining us, we are talking about the new Apple TV series. It is the story of not only Esther Leibowitz, but also the Sphinx barmaid, the secretary, the bookkeeper, who was Shirley Parker. So we're following that, speaking with some of the actors, the executive story editor, the people who were behind the scenes and on the screen about this series and the Afro link to it. Jay, I'll hand it over to you.
All right. So before I ask my next question, I do want to just make a point that we've had a couple people sort of watching live, and they are commenting, and it's all very positive. Gene S. High, also, enjoying the show. Lillian Steele as well. So, look, I just want to remind people who are listening and watching, please, by all means, join, share, comment. We see it. We try to put it up there so people can see it, and we do appreciate that. And also, just share out the show afterwards as well for people who can't catch it live. So my question to you guys is, look, this is a period piece, obviously, and it's it's fictional to some degree, but obviously pulling from real world events. But since there, as the saying goes, there's nothing new under the sun, unfortunately, in certain cases about this show or about the cases. How do you balance sort of that modern messaging, right? Which is, this sadly less reported story about Shirley Parker versus the Esther Leibowitz story, right? I'm talking about the sort of the historical context here. How do you balance that real world modern day messaging that it is clear that is a part of the show, and like you got to pay attention to this, right? How do you balance that with the sort of the period piece aspect and still tell that story, but also make sure that you are still giving people this sort of message to take home with you?
I'll jump in, Jay. That's a really great question. I think what our approach was in the writer's room, which is the more you tell the truth about that period of time, the more it will resonate in the now, and that you don't necessarily have to consciously do it because people are alive in this period now that they'll make the connections themselves. So they'll see, the Tessie Durst in it, the little girl who dies at the beginning of the show, and how that's connected to Esther Leibowitz, and how today that white bodies, Black bodies don't get that same sort of recognition. A Black woman can be dead in a lake for 3 months, and the only person covering it is the Afro. And it was very important to our room, to Alma specifically, that the Afro was represented, and so that's why we created a character that was from the Afro. That because it was super important to have that character and let her recur throughout the series, so that the historical piece of it is present, but also like to show like this is what it is in a white newsroom, and this is what it is when Black people take the story, and you see like those two trains running, to quote August Wilson, and to see the stark differences with which they are portrayed, and that's not unlike today. And if you're watching it and you're paying attention, you get that, hopefully.
Yes, right. Hopefully, but yeah, I do think it's an interesting balance to have to play, right? So I'd be interested to hear from Elwood and Jennifer on that, if you have some thoughts on it.
Forgive me if I'm butchering the language, but there's a quote in our show about the lion until the lion does something.
I remember that.
You know what I'm talking about? And it's
yes.
I was talking to someone about it, and I think that phrase is about how until the right body, you can't trust people outside of the experience to be 100% accurate about the experience. Like you can't have, I don't even know how to explain it, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that the only thing you have control over in regards to acting is being as honest as you can with that experience.
Mm-hmm.
My job, I cannot control how people view things. I can't control what people find important or not. But if I do my best to make it full, to make it honest, then it just takes one person to be like, I see my aunt in that. I see my mom in that. And that spreads the word. And that spreads the authenticity. And that spreads the curiosity. So that's all I can do.
So I'll give you that quote, by the way. And I know because it's in the beginning of the very first episode. It struck me as well. They say until the lion tells its story, the hunter will always be the hero.
Yeah.
So it's a great quote. It really is. Elwood, do you have thoughts on this as well?
Yes, I'll say it was basically just the authenticity. So what I really wanted to give, I never wanted anyone to be like, oh, that's Elwood. I wanted people to be confused, and I wanted them to be like, oh, wow, because they're so used to seeing me in, you know, maybe a comedic role or an abusive role. I play so many different roles, it's crazy. But I didn't want them to actually see me in it. I wanted them to be able for it to be relatable and say, "Oh wow, this got my stance, the way that I had to stand up, the people who surrounded me, and actually being able to listen." And would thank God for my God given talent, his gifts that he gave me, is because I didn't have a script. I didn't have anything to be like, okay, well, this is what's going to be going on today. I had to use my natural God given talents to be able to portray whatever role that was given to me for that day. So you always want to be in tune of what you're actually doing. So it was definitely some challenging moments, but when you have the talent and this is what you love to do, you just got to be ready. And what I've gotten my response from a lot of people like Elwood, I never really thought that you would have been able to play that role. Like put you in a mustache, and I didn't see you do any comedic things, anything. You were very serious and in tune with who you were at that point in time.
Okay, great. I'm going to kick it back over to our managing editor, Alexis, for another question.
Yeah. So one thing that really struck me in watching the series was, and it's kind of piggybacking off of Jay's earlier question about the issues that are addressed. It seemed to me that one of those themes was the aspect of women having to choose between going and, following their dream. And in this case, the reporter is, trying to chase after her career. She's trying to make a name for herself. She's trying to make it to the front page as opposed to the lesser, the stories that aren't as big news. But she also has a family and a son and a husband and dinner to make every night. So can you talk about that, Ms. Kelly, just a little bit about how that was brought to light and how you all spoke on the challenges of women? It was also a topic of discussion when our publisher spoke in DC at an event earlier this month. So can you talk about that aspect that was shown on screen?
Sure, happy to. Thank you for the question, Alexis. It was super important to Alma and to the room to show like just how different it was for women at that time period, how much of that still resonates today. Like you think about like last year when Kamala Harris had to do she did a debate and she had to stop and say, I'm speaking. Like I have to do that every third day of my life, And so just making sure that the challenges that women were going through during that time, that was actually present in a way, like the moment where Maddie's butt gets slapped by the guy, and that's commonplace. Like I remember those days. You can't do that now, but back in the day you could. And so the choice was you have to grin and bear it back in those days. And now people speak about it, and there's always legislation, etc. But back then it didn't. And so, like it was fascinating to me the way Alma was so able to beautifully sort of capture the nuance of what choices women had to make then in terms of how you conduct yourself in the workplace, how you conduct yourself at home, and then the moment where you snap, which we all know that moment. We all know that moment where Maddie picks up the glass and she smashes it, in the pilot, because, you can't take it anymore. Like you've chosen to swallow it. You've chosen to swallow it and swallow it and swallow it until you just explode. And so it was super important to make sure that we saw the choices, and then the two tracks of the women, that Maddie's tracks are this, Cleo's track is that. And these are the choices that they have to make based on who they are and what color they are in this period of time. And the fact that they are both women, so that both of those things, regardless of whether you're Jewish or you're Black, there are some things that the women share, the commonalities of how they don't have a lot of choices in that time period. And it was super important and intriguing to Alma to make sure that those nuances were also portrayed accurately, so that we could say, wow, we've come so far, and yet we haven't.
Right. Yeah, it is. I mean, it kind of goes back to that sort of, again, sadly, there's, not everything is new under the sun. It's like, I thought we were past this. And it's like, yeah, except not exactly. Right. But, you make progress as much as you can, and it's a slow moving ship, unfortunately. So I do want to ask, this is probably, maybe this is my own selfish question, right? But it's funny. I'm actually reading a book about sort of the Black Jewish experience in Baltimore for Baltimore housing. And it's interesting to watch this show and see sort of this aspect of these two groups that seem so apart in a lot of ways, but are so deeply connected in their sort of the history, especially in Baltimore, for folks who don't know, with housing and how, Jewish folks and Black folks have been treated. I mean, I don't want to play the oppression Olympics here, but, they're to varying degrees and everything. So I'm just interested, have you heard, I mean, obviously from Black folks, I'm sure you've heard plenty of response. I'm just interested, has there been a response as far as like how it's come from the other side, like from a Jewish perspective of like, have you, like, oh, this seems accurate, or I didn't know this story or something like that? I'd be really interested to know, like, what are the sides that you've heard anything, or is it just kind of been everybody's like, yeah, this is great? Or is it, have you heard any sort of controversial things is, I guess, my question. Not really.
Not necessarily from the Jewish
or any community, but just portrayed.
No, maybe one of my best friends, she's Jewish, and I'm not trying to like make her the ambassador for the Jewish experience.
Right, of course not. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think it connects to our last question about the role of women. I think from the women in my life that are both Black or women that are both, or women that are white, is that what they've experienced is that sometimes you watch a show and it's easy to go the plight of the Black, the plight of the Black side and then the plight of the white experience. But there's so many moments, especially within the women's trajectory, that you see these experiences be completely universal, have nothing to do with race. How do you sustain ambition while being a mother? What do you lose by making that choice? How do you deal with extreme exhaustion of, mind and body? Like, there's a lot of intersectionalities that are happening organically that I think that I find my friends on both sides of the experience being like, oh, I relate more to that, or I relate more to that. And I think that's pretty remarkable.
It's a testament to the writing.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah. And that's another point that I definitely want to top on. The writers, man, you guys are flipping amazing. Like the way it's so many subjects that it's not really race based. You have a guy that really wants to help his marriage work out, but he's struggling. He's trying to do different gigs and do this thing, but he wants to do things his way. But the wife is saying, no, you need to do them this way to get things done. I need these bills paid. And then you also have a mother who gave up on her career, but she's diving so much into her kids and trying to make family work and still trying to have complicity with the stepdad, still talking crazy to him. Then you on the other end you have the dad who has a child who he's taking care of. He may have been taking care of or paying child support forever, and then next thing you know, boop, that's not even my kid. So it was so many aspects of this where as though you could really take this story and really flip it and make it modern day and just keep going. So it was so many aspects in there, and it was just great. Then you have the woman that's been fighting so hard that wants this job, then she gets a job, and then she's like, okay, I've been putting in all this work, my time is coming. And then now the boss is telling you, oh, I can't really give you this job because you're past, but I've literally been doing the same job and working for you forever, but now you're judging me because I did something else in the past. So it's so many subjects and so many topics that are just it's a mosquito in here. That is just so prominent on everyday life. And it was just, the more and more I just kept, and when we was in DC and I started talking about it, they was like, oh, wow, what happened? I was like, why y'all ain't watched the last episode? And y'all tell me like I done told the story. Y'all got to go back and watch it. Like, how did you miss that part? So it was just so much to it where you could just keep going with this story because it was just so strong and so powerful. So yeah, it was, phenomenal.
Excellent. Okay, so one tradition we have on Chicken Box is this is all about getting on the box, getting on your soapbox, and telling what you want people to take away from this particular story. So I will start with Nambi E. Kelly and let her get on the box and tell people what she wants them to take away.
The takeaway for me that I want people to take away is that we are not invisible.
Okay. I think that statement stands for itself. It's perfect. All right.
That's it. That's all I got.
All right. That's okay.
That's how that go.
That's how it goes. Jennifer, your thoughts?
How do you follow that? Nabi, that was so good.
I'm Michelle. Just call me Michelle Obama.
Right.
Okay. Bear with me. So, yeah, do I want to? I feel like it might be too close to yours, but okay. Ingenue Ellis had an article the other day on Variety, and she said, and I wrote it down and I highlighted it because I'm like, this is it. She said, there is a lack of curiosity about Black women, about the lives of Black women, a lack of interest, a lack of care. I want people to watch it and see their sisters, see their aunts, see their brothers, see their uncles, but see the women in their life and ask them, are you okay? What do you need? How can I help? And also, what's your Venmo so I can give you money so you can make your dream come true? That's
Elwood,
I'll say for me, just let your story be told. Don't wait for someone else to tell your story. Let your story be told. God gave you so many gifts and so many things. You have to, in order to give the testimony, you have to go through tests. So in order for that really to happen, you can't keep those things inside. You have to let those things out, share it to the world, because you never know who you'll actually be helping in the long run. So the more that you're able to tell, the more that you're able to share, the more people can actually learn. And a lot of people, they keep those gifts inside. Oh, I don't want anybody in my personal business, but we all have struggles. We all have struggles, and you never know. The more that you put it out there in the universe, you never know who's listening. So there's always some other resources. There's always somebody who's there, somebody else who is willing to help. So tell your story. Do not keep those gifts inside.
Right. All right. And Alexis, I'm going to put you on the box. Make sure to unmute.
I haven't been on the box in a while, so I'm gonna try to keep it short. But Jennifer, I love what you said. I think the beauty of the Afro Archives is that we showed that curiosity, and we still show it today. I think the beauty is that when you look through our Afro Archives, you see people's first and last names. But not only that, if you want to know about Black people, come to the Afro, because we have their names, their ages, their addresses. If I want to go stand right where Shirley Lee Widgeon Parker lived here in Baltimore, I can go over west because the Afro printed her address. The Afro printed all of the different addresses that are related to this story and so many other stories. And so I love that quote, because I think that's one reason why Black press is still here. We're here to show that there are so many things of interest in the Black community, and then we record them, we put them on record. And I just want to say I'm so appreciative to you all for putting this Black story on the screen, and for using the Afro Archives. I mean, you all have really, I wish I could go back and talk to the reporters who, well, I can, because they're still here, some of them. The reporters who covered this, who were out at that lake, putting their words and their work on screen. I mean, we're just so appreciative, because you're proving once again why the Afro is so needed, and it helps us sustain. We are the Black Media Authority. We have these interesting stories, and it's not just, some of the more morbid or scandalous things. We have all of the births and the marriages and the positive news as well. You just have to show a little curiosity and understand that Black people are not a monolith. We are not just one type. We have a variety of backgrounds and loves and interests and passions. And so thank you for bringing to life this story and using the Afro archives and the work of our editorial room from 1969. I'm putting it on screen. We're very appreciative.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I guess I'll go last, even though I have the worst job, considering all of those great answers. And I'll just say this. Learning history is the best way to pattern a proper future, right?
Mm.
And so pulling these stories and understanding where our media has come, how far it's come, how we do reporting on these issues, whether it is from a Black perspective in this case, whether it is the woman's perspective. If you're going to have progress, if you're going to see people as full human beings, and the sort of the full look at our own humanity, learning from our history, good and bad, is the only way to pattern that proper future. So I'll say that, and thank you guys for all.
Thank you.
And
Thank
he's gone.
you.
Oh, he's
He
here.
done went off. He said, thank you.
He's like, hey,
No, I'm still here. I'm still here. I swear I did not touch anything. I'm still here.
that was a mic drop.
Yeah.
Right.
So I will say this: there is the finale for the show is this week. So make sure that you catch up if you have not already, so you can catch the finale. People are going to be talking about it. There you go. The finale is the 23rd. So tomorrow, yes, Friday the 23rd. So make sure you check it out. Lady in the Lake. Again, thank you to my co-host this week, Alexis Taylor, our managing editor, Nambi E. Kelly, the executive story editor for Lady in the Lake, Jennifer Mogbach, and Elwood Ingram as well. Thank you, all of you. That was a really wonderful conversation. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.
I'll be
All
working
right.
with you guys soon. Yes, indeed. Remember this face.